Welcome to the Amazon Legends podcast, where we have real stories about making it big on Amazon. Our guests are CEOs of large companies and entrepreneurs who became powerful sellers, also experts specializing in helping sellers, and both former and current Amazon employees who will give us an insight from behind the scenes. Here's your host, Nick Urison.
Welcome to another episode of Amazon Legends. My next guest today comes to the show all the way from Berlin, and he spent years in business development, and for whatever reason, he can tell us why, he decided to go into the Amazon space by taking a 50% salary cut. So today he works for the god of all aggregators, Thrasio. And he was sharing with me just before we started that one of his brands is doing wonders despite all odds going on today with the marketplace. So he manages the PPC operations for Thrasio. And when he's not working, he's a fan of modern art and music. And to the extent that, he's very passionate about it. So with that, everybody meet my guest, Louis Roubert. Welcome to the show, Louis. How are you?
I'm great, Nick. Very good. Very glad, to be on the podcast. Real pleasure and also real honor to be here with you. Thanks for hosting.
Oh, thank you. So, you guys are managing several brands and you run the PPC campaigns specifically. So share with us some of your winning strategies. So I'm sure our listeners will benefit from this greatly, because when you launch a brand, you need reviews. Reviews come from orders. Orders need reviews. So that catch-22 you break by running an effective PPC campaign. So share with us some PPC strategies that get you results despite the fact that you're launching a new listing.
Sure. So part of the winning strategy, and it's pretty much kind of bold to say, but is really to get inside the consumer's mind. So
what does that mean exactly in terms of consumer's mind? Is it the target audience, or you have something else?
It's getting indeed so pretty close to the consumer's audience by really making sure that you get a lot of data points before going ahead on the market. Yeah.
So when you say data points, things obviously become a lot more complex. So what are the data points that you are specifically monitoring?
So just so you know, when we get a new brand on the market or from pretty much an existing seller, we already have existing data from the existing setup from the seller that we can take over and just replicate with our new integrated process. And we can already have some information from the existing PPC setup from the seller. So starting from there, we then afterwards pull some reports.
Mm-hmm. So you're referring to an existing Seller Central account that has some advertising history, right?
Exactly.
So let's break this down into two different scenarios, because it's not always the same. So let's take the clean slate. So let's imagine that you're going to launch and there is no advertising data whatsoever on that new listing that they are about to launch. So walk us through how that rolls out.
Sure. So first thing first, one of my rule of thumb, since I've started to do this job, is really keep it simple and keep it lean. So keep things simple. Do not go with too much campaigns, with too many campaigns. Because the more it gets complicated, the more it is to maintain, but also to really get a fresh eye, but also a clear eye on what's going on, but also in terms of maintenance. What does it mean is to go with an auto campaign, with an automatic campaign, of course, set it correctly with different targeting types that you've got. So which is the close match, the substitute, the complement, or the loose match. and also getting a few broad match campaigns and exact also keyword targeting campaign that you get directly from the listing research and from a keyword research of your, or from getting some keywords from your competitors with tools like Helium 10, for example.
I see. So what I'm hearing is, first of all, you have to have keyword research. So you have to have some kind of a strategy in terms of what keywords you are targeting. And you roll out with those on the type of match that you mentioned. Which type of match you want to use those on those?
So usually, I mean, we go with, I mean, I personally go, I mean, with the classic broad match. So with short tails to make sure to keep the mid funnel and upper funnel quite wide open enough so I can figure it out pretty much what sticks, so to say. With the consumer, what is going to attract most of the clicks, my impressions regarding into my product, and how do I fit inside the market with going with those different match types. So then I can segment differently, basically my my funnelization in terms of traffic, but also in terms of the market, and with those different keywords, how do I fit, or where do I want to go in terms of the funnel?
Okay, so while this broad match campaign is running, you also have an auto match campaign.
Exactly.
That will get you, it's basically what you're doing is you are honing in on some of the keywords that the company decided to target, while also hunting for new ones that people may search and find you and then click on you, right? And then those ones that will become later your targets to optimize your campaign.
Yeah, exactly. Harvesting a lot of keywords with those different match types, yes.
Okay, so this is for the scenario where they have no history, no nothing, and they're launching a brand new listing. Okay, so I have a fundamental question here, and I would love to hear your take on it, because it's two different approaches. One is, do you target short tail keywords, which will have a higher search volume and therefore higher bids, or do you target long tail keywords, but many of them? Tell us what your take on this is, because it's I'm hearing different approaches from different people.
Yeah, so of course, I mean, it always depends on your budget and how much are you ready to go for the pain of pretty much finding out what you want, right? But my recommendation is always to take the long tails as exact match, because this is where it's going to get cheaper, but this is also going to help you to get the sales velocity going, and also keep on having a low ACoS, or pretty much a good ACoS, depending on where is your gross margin, right, on the product. But those high search volume, and let's take them into the scenario where it's a new listing, you always have this honeymoon period where your listing is going to get tested by Amazon, but also by the Amazon advertising system, where both of them are going to see how much is your product desirable, so to say. So I definitely would go both sides with having some campaigns with, again, depending on how much do you want to limit your budget on those high search volume, but also high bids with broad match or phrase match terms. And on your long tails, you can go quite well, but also making sure that you can have like different ways. Either you put like 10 to 15 keywords per ad group. Let's say that you have one campaign, one ad group, and 10 to 15 of those long tails or mid tails. And then you just develop like this. So pretty much you're going to lift over all your budget and all your costs between those short tails, high bids and high costs, and those long tail, low revenue or low orders, but at least low ACoS.
I see. So you mix and match. That's what I'm hearing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, because I had another guest, and his approach was, you are better off going after these short tail keywords in your advertising. Yes, you're gonna have to bid higher in order to get your higher position, but at the end of the day, because they have a lot more volume, you are going to get more orders. And because of those orders that you get, your rank will improve. So then you can ride on your higher rank going forward. Of course, this is not a winning strategy as a permanent approach. It's just to give it a boost. This way, even if you lose money, in fact, his episode is titled Making Money by Losing Money. So it's because if you did this on Google, it wouldn't have any impact. But because Google is, there's no ranking, there's no nothing, so to speak. But on Amazon, if you increase your order flow, then obviously that improves your rank. And in the meantime, if you're targeting those keywords, then you are going to get somewhat of a recognition for those keywords. So in the long run, it does pay off. What do you say about that strategy? Is that something that you use from time to time?
Yeah. So, I mean, in my case, and because I'm not a seller, but I'm working for a corporate, so we see, of course, things differently. And but we still do have, like, of course, numbers, I mean, to bring back, right? I mean, it's not like we have unlimited cash flow. So, of course, I mean, we have a profitability to keep on having a look at. But definitely in the launch phase, yes, we go very aggressively on this. Just like, I mean, your former guest, I mean, shared, that's definitely something that you should, I mean, if you can, again, depending if you are an independent seller and how much budget you have in front of you, but you definitely, with a new listing and for launch, you should definitely go quite aggressively in the beginning to maximize your ranking, your orders, and rank as fast as possible. Otherwise, you could indeed end up in a situation when you're going to get stuck pretty much in the limbos and never going to be able to come back. Even though Amazon tends to say, we look at the data from the last 60 days. So we constantly analyze and pretty much see the desirability of your listing over time and each and every 60 days. So you need to stay consistent, but yes, okay. But from my experience, and my experience is what it is from the last 3 years, most of the time, if your campaigns, but also if your listing is starting to get inside the limbos, coming out of it is going to be pretty painful, but also might not come back because the data is pretty much kind of dirty, so to say. And your campaigns are pretty much flagged by the algorithm as not really working well or not so attractive, and you're pretty much stuck there. So yes, if you have the budget, go for it. Be aggressive when you have this, again, honeymoon period. If you can, just do it. You should indeed aim for ranking as high as possible on those short tail keywords. And this is actually what I've done past the 2 weeks on the new listing that we have launched.
Mm-hmm. So I heard you say something. If you are in a limbo, what does that mean? Is it a campaign not converting? Is that what you call a limbo?
What I call a limbo is pretty much when your listing is, so you have at Amazon this flywheel effect, and then you have the other way around, right? So where you pretty much fall down. So this is what I call, I mean, getting inside the limbos. Is where your listing is really starting to derank massively week after week. And your campaigns, because you just want it to be very conservative or not really being efficient or aggressive with them, just don't really pick up. So everything is just starting to go down pretty much. Nothing is going to come back. So sometimes, even if you go very aggressively, with your bids, the impressions simply do not come back. They don't come back, or Amazon doesn't really give you another chance pretty much to come back to it, because you have basically two different systems. You have the A9 system, and then you have the Amazon ads system. And so both of them work hand in hand, so to say. And the Amazon ads algorithm is just going to see, okay, this campaign ID has this history and it doesn't work out, or this campaign doesn't work out anymore. It's pretty much gone. So then you would have to pretty much archive and try again and see if it works, with maybe the help also with a coupon or something to try to revive your whole listing, to try to come back, and need to build again data over time.
Are you referring to the campaign that it doesn't work, and then you archive the campaign and you create a new campaign?
Yes.
I see. Okay, so this is very to me it's significant information, because what you are saying is your listing on its own with the A9 algorithm, you may be doing well, but your ad campaigns, if they built up history that is not good, then Amazon will simply never let it come back. Then you have to stop and start a new campaign. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, sometimes this happens, but this also happens the other way around. When you have a very good campaign, that you should be careful with this, because it built up also a very good amount of data over time.
Yeah.
Also, the other way around is also very important.
So really what I'm getting from you is you should check your ACOS and everything else, and then make sure that your campaign, and we're talking about the individual campaigns, they are working, performing well, but at the same time, you also have to be monitoring your sales rank, because sales rank is the indicator of your overall listing. And even though your campaigns may be working, your sales rank may still be dipping, right?
So, so then afterwards, like if we talk about the bestseller rank, so the bestseller rank sometimes can go down, but your sales can go up on the advertising side, because you have a lot of different components, right? I mean, you're not alone on the market. Let's say that you're in the beauty section, and you're selling a very specific niche type of product in the beauty section, and your total BSR is kind of flattening or actually decreasing. But maybe on top of you, in the very highest health and beauty section, a lot of products are generating a lot more orders, but also a lot more revenue than you. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing bad. It's just that the whole category, inside the overall category, your product and your ASIN is pretty much like declining in the overall bestseller rank. But then you need to reconsider your situation in your niche and your subcategories, depending on how did you select them. Then that's a very different situation. But yeah, I mean, sometimes we also have the situation where the overall listing is kind of going down, but the the campaigns are going up in terms of performance, because there is always kind of this gap in between where you're building up sponsored revenue and where the total, say, organic revenue of your listing is not going there yet, because your ranking on certain keywords might not be there yet. So you need to build it up over time and track down those two components, also with the correlation between sponsored and organic ranking on those terms.
So the goal, a true winning strategy is really everything that I'm hearing from you is to have focus in your campaign, to not necessarily look at the BSR, because the BSR may, by the time you throw in everybody else into the mix, the category may do well, and then in reference to the overall category, you may not be doing well, but the campaign may be doing well. But if you are focused on which keywords you are capturing, that you're getting the Amazon Choice badge for and things like that, that's what matters, because that's where you're putting up the building, right? Brick by brick, it's keyword by keyword. And if you're doing well on those, and also I guess your product page, if it's converting well, then you'll be okay in the long run. Is that the plan so much?
Pretty much. I mean, that's what you also see, like from a data perspective, when you see that a lot of people clicked on your ad or clicked on your page and they don't convert, or pretty much your click-through rate is very high. So your desirability is very high, but your conversion rate is pretty low, then there might be a gap somewhere. So it's either in your listing, in your pictures, maybe you lack some content or something that is going to give the very last words of the consumer, which is to buy, right? At the very end, I mean, we all buy. We decide with our credit card, cash, you name it. But so, yeah, this is definitely also something to keep in mind at the very end is to pretty much rank, and the more you rank means also to the system at the very end for Amazon is that you are very desirable for the consumers. And because there are so much consumers focused at the very end, if your conversion rate and click-through rate go really well hand in hand, then with your campaigns, building up keywords by keywords rankings, as you just rightfully said, you're going to build up your empire over time, pretty much.
Yeah, that's this is cool. So this is, and of course PPC will facilitate getting there. I want to ask you also in Thrasio, I don't know if you have if you like guidelines or criteria for launching these campaigns in terms of setting budgets. So how do you guys set a PPC budget in terms of over time?
Yeah. So in the very early ages of a product, or let's say of a new brand coming in, so we will figure it out, the budget, by looking at the existing performance, but also the existing spend that has been done for a very specific amount of time. So looking also at seasonality, because we also have some products that have seasonalities. So from there on, we have a collaboration with a dedicated team that is analyzing the business. So taking it from a very pure P&L perspective, looking at, you know, all the associated cogs of an item, but also all the different spends that went from a quarter to a quarter, even like to a very specific week. Or let's say if there was a specific Prime Day, we pretty much know how to determine, okay, how much spend do we need to allocate in percentage to this very specific ASIN on the given week. That's for the existing portfolio. Mm-hmm. But now that let's say that we have a new product, then that's going to be, of course, a very different kind of thing, where we are going to see the evolution for the first like 3 months, let's say, of the product. How much did we spend and how much did the organic rank, but also the organic total revenue developed? So then we can see and also pretty much not guess, but actually properly calculate how much spend do we want to allocate on a weekly basis, on the monthly basis, and so on and so forth. So this is going to be, in the very beginning, it's going to be pretty much not so well like allocated. It depends like from a brand to a brand, but also ASIN to ASIN. It's no exact science sometimes. So it will mostly depend on the expected calculations that have been done also from the product launch team, and also on the expected KPIs like revenue, contribution, profits that are going to be reached by the end of the quarter, or pretty much by the end of the year, because we also have yearly calculations also on numbers.
So I heard, I mean, I understand there is no standard answer. And of course, for an existing listing, it's a different situation than a new listing. So we are still under that scenario where we are launching a new listing. So let's cover that scenario, because I want the listeners to get some idea about how to plan for this. So what I heard you say is first 3 months, you don't know, right? So there is no setting budget, so to speak, in the first 3 months, because all you are doing is you're throwing a bunch of things at the wall and see what sticks. That's what you're trying to do. And then at that point, you know, like, as you mentioned earlier, you have auto campaign, you have the broad match. So you are going to optimize based on what's producing. So what I would like to recommend to my clients is, as a percentage of revenue, be prepared to spend so much in advertising, and then for every dollar you spend, then expect to generate X number of dollars. So if we put it in those terms, can you share with us what kind of results you are used to achieving in month 1, month 2, month 3?
Honestly, I don't know those numbers at Thrasio exactly. Like, I really have to be honest, I don't really know those exact like percentage numbers. So, I mean, I had like very few product launches, I mean, on my side, to be clear, at Thrasio. So I cannot really, I mean, except like just one, but that was like maybe 3 weeks ago. Otherwise, yes, I would definitely agree with you, like generally speaking, and to keep it general, that in the very beginning, and again, it depends like on your products and on your gross margin from the very beginning, but you would definitely have in the very beginning, at least, let's say 70% of your sponsored product, I mean, of your sponsored revenue coming in. So expectedly a cost at break even, pretty much, or at least try to keep it at break even or around your break even. And normally, if you stay aggressive like this by, let's say, and if you rank correctly, by 3 months, normally you should be at 50-50, or, and if you are doing really well, you should be around 35-40% sponsored revenue, and therefore decrease your cost and be a bit more mindful about your ACOS and TACOS for sure.
Okay, so you are not too far from what I always set as expectations. So let me tell you what this is not something that I do myself in terms of running the campaigns, but from business planning perspective, knowing all the moving parts and everything, this is what I recommend in terms of what the seller should expect, as well as what the person who is running the PPC campaign should try to accomplish. So I say, for every dollar you spend in month 1 in advertising, expect to generate $1 in revenue, which I believe you called it break even, right? Yeah. So the sellers listening, when they hear a break even the first month, they will be all happy. Oh, break even. But in sellers' eyes, break even means, selling a price minus the cost of the merchandise minus. That's not what we're talking about. So break even means spend $1 in advertising, generate $1 in revenue, right?
Yeah, it's really, I mean, going like eating your whole gross margin pretty much, like really going at, yeah, pretty much zero profit.
Yeah. So, I mean, they'll be bleeding when they break even in advertising terms. So month 1, spend $1, generate $1 in revenue. Month 2, expect to spend $1 and generate and expect to see $2 for every $1 you spend. And then by month 3, expect to spend for every $1, generate $3 to $4 in revenue. So if you do this well, then over 3 months, you will have achieved 25% of your sales will be spent going forward. It will be spent on advertising. And then you will know exactly what is working, what keywords are converting, and others. And you will have built some kind of history that will help you get your campaign optimized even further. And then going forward, that 25% can go down further depending on your price point, how your product page is converting, and everything else. So what is your take on this approach for a new launch? Is it doable?
Yeah, I mean, depending on your budget and how do you fix and see also your pricing, because that's also, I mean, as you just said, like it's a very big component also of your whole strategy, right? I mean, a lot of people also evolve their campaigns, but also evolve the whole launch also with the pricing going higher over time, of course, because you need to be more competitive in the beginning, but over time, yes, this is definitely something that is definitely going to work if your product is really, again, starting from the consumer perspective, desirable, and they choose it, because that's also, I mean, at the end, the consumer decides.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you need to have done your homework to make sure that there is going to be a demand for this item. There is the keywords will have enough searches, and your price is competitive, right? If it's not competitively priced, or you are offering value and things like that. And then of course you have to have your product page properly designed, your pictures, your A plus. All
Yeah.
those, we are assuming all that work is done. This is just on PPC.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Yeah.
also, I mean, to add to this, I mean, I also usually just say to the people, just, PPC is the very last stage of the rocket and pretty much putting the fuel inside the rocket. But if you don't do all of those elements, so first thing first, like the SEO, the pictures, everything, if your pricing also is not adjusted correctly, I can throw as much PPC money as I want. It's not going to work out. And I've seen it in the past so many times. It's actually doing the other way around. Like it's pretty much like putting up the gas pedal and looking at the wall and just going straight to the wall and just be like, I hope it's going to work out. So, so yeah, just, I mean, the first steps are definitely going to be a huge, like, I mean, this is going to be the fundamentals, sorry, of everything that are going to help you then afterwards with PPC. PPC is pretty much going to put a bit of push in the back and help you activate the whole flywheel effect by promoting your listing and showing your listing and giving more visibility towards customers of your product and your offer. But at the very end, if your offer doesn't work or was not well made from the very beginning, it's not going to work out. It's just like if I would bring up, I mean, my friend who is not looking well and throwing him to, someone and just be like, yeah, hope it's going to work out. Just show yourself at the best.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there is quite a bit of work that goes into creating a listing. And a lot of people also, they tend to rush and they say, oh, let's get the listing up, and let's start the campaign and let's see some sale. It just doesn't work like that. Plus, you're building up history with Amazon where you simply demonstrate that this listing doesn't work. And then you need to get into this relaunch mode, right? So there is a huge advantage in launching a listing from scratch. It has no history, no nothing. You'll get the honeymoon period. But if you doing that does not yield the results to get you somewhere in the ranking, then you have to do a relaunch. Now you are fighting against your past. It's like going to jail and having a conviction record.
And on top of that, I mean, it depends on where you are because I mean, for me, as I've said, I'm just like an employee of this massive company that is Thrasio, right? So I'm pretty much on my safe side. But if you are a seller, if you are an entrepreneur, you also have to keep in mind that also business-wise, this is going to be also massively impacting your business.
Right.
I mean, going through a relaunch, meaning that you pretty much have to restart again, the whole process that we just said before, right? I mean, just re-engaging yourself in front of Amazon with the algorithm, spending a lot, expecting, and also like maybe your reviews are going to get pretty much like in the trash. So you have to start all over again, this whole process. So you're losing time also business-wise, which is very much damaging also for your cash flow. So, do your homework before. Do your homework well before, just going inside the PPC and everything. So that's definitely very important.
Yeah. So I have one other difficult question to ask you. Give us your best answer. It doesn't have to be precise. So we established that month one, spend $1, generate $1. Month two, spend $1, generate $2, so on and so forth. So that's fine. So how much is enough in that first month? So because I say, okay, then here is $100. Let's spend 100. Let's generate $100. Let's see how it goes. So there is a critical mass you have to achieve, right? So you can't just spend those little nickels and dimes. So what is a minimum that sellers should expect to spend?
I mean, that's the big question, right? I mean, especially now, I mean, look, the times the times of launching, I mean, with $3,000, $5,000, a whole Amazon business, not talking about like PPC, right?
Yeah.
Are pretty much gone now, especially regarding the CPC costs, depending on your categories, just jumping like by 20 to 30%, like almost year over year, from category to category, depending on where you want to go.
Yeah.
But okay, depending on your pricing, I would say roughly nowadays, and now that I'm looking at more, now that I'm thinking more and more about it, yeah, you should think about the first month with at least, I would say $3,000 would be a good number.
Okay.
Depending on, again, depending budget, price, category, subcategory you want to get for, and average CPC for this category. But yeah, I would say you should count at least 2,000 to 3,000, like bare minimum.
Okay. That's a fair number. It's, I mean, listen, if you are looking to launch a brand, this is intellectual property, right? So you're gonna build a brand equity. So this does not happen if you can't spend a few dollars here and there, and really spending $2,000-3,000 on advertising on brand new launch. That's if you can't afford to do that, you really have to think twice. So this is totally a number that I've come across several times. So I have another question for you from a strategy standpoint. So as you know, there is external traffic that Amazon rewards you for
Yes.
through brand referral bonus program. So I've seen, again, two approaches to this. Some people say, no, stick to PPC, Amazon PPC only, because you know that people on Amazon are there to buy merchandise. So if you advertise to them, your conversion rate is going to be far greater, and then you rank much, much better, versus external advertising, where people that you may bring from Google or Facebook or Instagram or whatever are not necessarily buyers looking for products. So by flooding your listing with those visitors, your conversion rate is going to take a dip, and therefore it's going to affect your ranking badly. So what is your take on those two approaches?
Yeah, so I'm gonna give you pretty much the worst answer. It depends. So, being a former sales consultant, this is pretty much, I mean, the worst, the sales consultant answer or consultant answer. It depends. But what I would recommend is, depending on your product, let's say that your product is very much in the form of commoditized relationship. So let's say that I'm selling the usual example that everyone gives, which is, how is this called again? Not the garlic press. So let's say that I want to sell a garlic press. It's not lifestyle. It's pretty much commoditized, and the pricing is pretty much a race to the bottom. Sending out external traffic is definitely not going to help you. I think that might help you or give you a bit of push, like for a moment, but on the long run, I don't know if it's really going to work out. But if you're more a lifestyle product, let's say for beauty section or for any form of products that have more lifestyle, but also an aspirational intent to buy, or even like if it's for fitness or something like this, I would say 50-50 or even like 70-30, because we have, again, coming back to this product launch that we had 3 weeks ago, we got the bestseller badge by having pretty much 70% PPC and 30% TikTok. And this is the fastest bestseller badge we have ever had in the history of the brand. So, but it's a lifestyle brand. But so you need to, I mean, again, like put yourself in the shoes of the consumer, put yourself like very close to the consumer and look at your data and think again, what is your product and what's your brand? So you can think the strategy ahead. So that's not really, I mean, the nice and easy answer, but I would say that yes, this is definitely something that you can do and that you should try, because most of the time also we see that CPMs, VCPMs on other platforms are way cheaper, that you can have a broader audience, or maybe the audience that you really want to target and reach for. And therefore, maybe you should try to get them and pretty much send them to your Amazon listing. Because at the end of the day, those people are going to go to your listing and they're going to decide if they want it or not. So, and you can still acquire them maybe for cheaper than on Amazon. But CPC still matters because, again, you have those two Amazon brains, and those two brains, which is the A9 and the Amazon advertising brain, so to say, work together and only have one priority, which is the consumer.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. So depending on what kind of product you are selling, this is definitely an option. At least I didn't hear you push back on it. I didn't hear you share too much concern on the rank taking and nosedive. You are for it. You just need to watch the numbers.
yeah. So it can happen. So, and indeed, I mean, like, I would be very careful with this, again, depending on the category and what type of product do you have and what's the brand message overall, or how do consumers react to your advertising. Because if you see that indeed, if you throw a lot of external traffic and it doesn't convert, then that's also a very big signal to Amazon. Okay, we are getting a lot of people onto the platform, but we cannot retain them. Because of course, Amazon is always focused on the consumer, because the consumer then buys and they get, of course, their commission, right? It's also, I mean, their business. So if you send in people, but in the end, they don't convert, it's pretty much like sending you to a store and you come out. As an entrepreneur, I've pretty much lost my money. If I am the Amazon shop on the street corner and someone comes in but doesn't convert, and I see 1,000 people coming in but not converting, at some point I'm going to have some thoughts about your product in my shop. Yeah. So this is definitely a risk. But yes, I wouldn't push it back. It always matters at some point to get some more external traffic and some boost on this side. 100%. It always depends, again, on how do consumers react. The whole thing, and we always come back to it, is the consumer.
So, ever since we started this discussion, everything seems to come back to the same thing, and that's the conversion, right?
Yes.
So you have to track conversion. So this is another thing. Tracking conversion is, and I'm not talking about tracking conversion on the advertising data. I'm talking about conversion on your product detail page, especially if you, first of all, if you're bringing external traffic, you have to use attribution, right? So you know where it's coming from and where you're spending the money, and most important, what is converting, which external traffic source is generating the most. But at the end of the day, it's your overall, because you also have your organic traffic. So you got three different types of traffic, categorically speaking: paid Amazon traffic, you have the paid external traffic, and then you have the organic traffic. And put them all together, they all come to the same place, which is the product page. So therefore, you have to keep monitoring what your conversion is on your product detail page at all times. And this does not happen just by looking at one downloaded report. You have to look at it in perspective over time, right?
Yes. You cannot take in everything just, I mean, in one silo and in one nutshell. You always need to keep, I mean, the view, holistically speaking, of course. Where this happened to me actually with a brand where I was so much focused in my own PPC world that I sometimes you kind of forget the big picture, because this is my world, right? I mean, I'm just only stuck in my PPC bubble, so to say. So the whole problem with this is then at some point you forget like the point of the reality, which is to rank and get organic traffic. Because if you constantly pay to play, then at some point that's great for Amazon, but not for you. Right? So
Yeah.
you're here to make money. I mean, I believe that if you're an entrepreneur, I mean, you're pretty much profit driven, right? So that's definitely something that you should keep. So, and to come back to this situation that I had is that, yes, my numbers look great, but the overall profitability was starting to kind of flatten or get a tank and was starting to decorrelate from the sponsored revenue, where actually my conversion rate pretty much remained a bit higher or the same, but my sponsored revenue started to overtake the overall revenue. So then you see a rising take cost, so total advertising cost of sales, and your organic revenue is starting to take a dip, and the profitability is also starting to take a dip.
Mhm.
Why? Because the whole ranking and the whole keyword ranking, sponsored ranking, was starting to take over completely the organic position of my listing on my main keywords, meaning that people went to the page, clicked on my advertising, and bought the product. But the very beginning and the why we do PPC is actually to rank organically. So then people search, find your product organically and buy. But where my ranking between sponsored one and organic one were so close that actually people constantly went to the sponsored one, but not to the organic one. So that's a very small example that I can give you right here, but that's always something that I think Amazon entrepreneurs should always keep in mind, is just track your rankings and make sure that you don't go into a vanity metrics where your campaigns are performing or like extremely well, but you kind of forget the whole intent of why you do such type of thing. So make sure that the organic is correlates or actually at some point overtakes. I mean, that's actually the whole point, right? I mean, to rank so then you can overtake and make profits.
So the trick to getting organic to overtake the paid is conversion. Because if your product page is, from behavior standpoint, if it's converting well, that means that people who land on your page are, the page is doing its job to convince them that this is a good product and it's a good purchase and a good price, buy it, and they're buying it. So if you are achieving a good conversion rate, by design, every paid click on Amazon platform generates, in my experience, you tell me if you are seeing the same kind of results, but between 3 to 5 organic clicks. So Amazon, I mean, this is, I don't want to call it pay to play, but it is pay to play. In other words, if you just do, unless you have like huge Instagram followers and then you unleash them all to your listing, you're not going to get any business organically. You're going to have to spend advertising. But Amazon rewards you if you advertise by sending you organic clicks. And so therefore, if your conversion rate is good and healthy, you will capitalize on those organic clicks that you're getting automatically. So technically, if you've done the job right to create a converting product page and you've got your content good and everything else is good, your pricing is good, this scenario should never really occur. Your paid revenue should always be trailing behind organic revenue. But this is a very good red flag for you to share with us, for people to watch. That means that something wrong with conversion.
Yeah. So definitely, I mean, 100% with you on that. That's definitely the conversion rate is pretty much going to dictate you're going to win or not, like, right? And you always have, I mean, sponsored conversion rate and organic conversion rate. But at the very end of the day, yeah, the conversion rate of the overall listing is going to dictate if your product is going to make it or not. And you can also see it, I mean, with your competitors, looking at new reports that we have, that's the ones that get the biggest click share, so that are the highest desirable, but also the ones that account for the highest amount of conversions, definitely have a higher conversion rate than you at some point. They are more desirable. So that's definitely a big point I mean, that's, yeah, it's 100% true and valuable. The only, so the whole like situation and story that I just shared before is like to make sure to spend accordingly and not to go and overkill on sponsored revenue, because at some point you have a point of efficiency, you have a pivot of efficiency that is going to get lost, and where your whole sponsored revenue might actually overkill your organic revenue. And so you're great at advertising, but you're actually so good that you just want to keep on pushing on the gas pedal, but you're actually jeopardizing your organic revenue. So always keep in mind, I mean, the point of efficiency of your overall like business and your product, so you don't overkill everything by just being very proud and very bold with your PPC revenue and just keeping on pushing on the gas pedal. There is a point of efficiency that is going to get lost at some point, and you're just going to pretty much shoot yourself in the foot. So be careful.
Yeah. So, there is an old saying that you can't keep a windmill going by carrying buckets of water. So, those watermills.
That's a very good one. I like it.
Yeah. So at some point in time, the wind has to pick it up and then keep it going. You can't be just constantly, making it turn. This is extremely valuable, Louis. I mean, this is the kind of stuff. I know that I ask you to give us numbers, but the numbers that you've given, even though, we don't want anybody to take them, literally, but it gives an idea, because there are a lot of people, changing circumstances, Amazon policies are changing. So where do we start? How do we budget? How do we plan for this? What should be the expectations rather? So this will be great. So let's talk about you a little bit. So enough of the PPC talk. So tell us, I want to take you all the way back to your early days so that we want to learn about your life experience. So where did you grow up?
I grew up in the suburbs of Paris, in a town called Villeneuve-Saint-Georges. I mean, that's actually where I'm born. So that's pretty much a city that is 35 minutes away from Paris in France. That's where I grew up, like in this area. So in the southeast of Paris, that's where I grew up. Yeah.
So growing up, were you a numbers person, or what were your interests as a kid?
Honestly, I didn't grow up much a number person, I have to say. I kind of became a number person for various reasons, like later over time in my life. But no, I've always been extremely curious. You would have always found me in the library taking random books, especially history books, hard books, or any type of books pretty much that rose my curiosity. And I'm still working like this, pretty much always driven by curiosity, which is a very tough area for me, because right now you have unlimited access to anything. So now you need to be more a curator or a moderator of anything that is thrown at you or that algorithms can filter for you. But yeah, when I was a kid, like there was no internet at home back in this time. So my home library, so my parents' pretty much books, or what my grandparents were buying me in terms of books, were constantly filling me in. And I was actually like the one constantly driving my grandmother to museums, because I wanted to get more and more and more and more. I was just constantly hungry for more information, more knowledge about anything.
Do you have any brothers, sisters?
Yeah, I have a little sister. She is 22.
So was she like you also, or you were the only one?
I'm pretty much the only one. I mean, actually, I got this type of mindset and behavior from my father, but my sister is different from me from this perspective.
So you first of all, this skill or characteristic is perfect for Amazon because curious mind is always learning, right? So learning is always needed with Amazon. So it's perfect place. So where do you think that curious mind come from? You mentioned your father was the same. So did he? Do you remember any? How did you get to be curious?
I think that it came from the fact that I've always seen my parents reading, but also constantly sharing new ideas around the dinner table all the time, or just talking about a lot of things that I don't know. So I was constantly asking questions and being constantly, okay, but what does this word means? Or actually just, nodding my head and just pretending. So pretty much playing repeat or fake it till you make it, and just like constantly going into books and just trying to add something to the conversation. I think that it's pretty much a kid behavior that they just want to get loved. We all want to be loved and have attention, right? So by contributing to the discussion and just having an interaction with your parents definitely drives also the fact that you want to get also this whole attention and love from your parents by having this, but also just the love of being constantly discovering new things in your environments, also, I believe.
So seeing your parents read all the time was really they led by example. They wanted. So tell me this. So one of the things that happens is once you start reading and you start learning new stuff, you start to form your opinions. So did you have any occasions where you started to share your opinion, but it was not agreed and it was a disagreement? So I guess what I'm asking is, did they teach you how to be disagreeable?
Yeah. I mean, we disagreed like plenty of times. I mean, I have a family that has a very broad political environment, so to say, like in opinions. So that's definitely something that they kind of teach me, but also that I've seen like constantly also between my parents having like very polite, of course, like very polite arguments, or pretty much like discussions, and knowing how to forge an opinion, but also pretty much defending your opinion, but also accepting different perspectives, and also changing, and also accepting to change your opinion, right? And that's what I got from them, but also what I keep on having as a professional, that what you think might be true is actually not the case. And I mean, I'm 3 years in this job now, Nick, and I keep on getting back to school. I mean, you constantly keep on changing your mind and visions of the things. And also the more data we get with those new reports and those new data points actually is making things more complicated, but actually keeping on reminding you that whatever experience or knowledge that you had built over time, like over the last 3 or 4 years, have pretty much no value. You constantly have to learn and come back.
Well, don't discount. I mean, it has some value, but definitely deteriorating value. So it's, how it is. This is what I say. Knowledge is like printing something on paper. The moment that you acquire it, it starts to deteriorate in value. So anything you put on paper is already outdated because there's a newer version. So going back to what I was saying, I think it's a huge value for someone to be able to disagree without being disagreeable. So I think in this day and age, especially, the very much a polarized society we have become, people have very quickly become disagreeable. I think disagreements are very healthy because it gives a different perspective. People are often afraid to use the word argument. Argument is not fighting. Argument is you give your argument on your opinion, and somebody else. I always invite people with disagreements on a particular subject to have an argument about it. You can debate both sides of it, and let's face it, this is not like science that there is 100% proof that your opinion is right. It's it's great that your parents have given that to you, and now you are actually capitalizing on it. So
Yeah, it's
a great way.
yeah, thanks. I mean, I've always heard, I've heard like maybe a year ago from someone telling me, having kids, it's 50% genes, 50% education.
Right.
So I definitely agree with you. Like, that things are getting pretty much entitled, but also like very polarized, and people don't really leave enough of space for the others to get listened to.
Yeah.
So everyone is pretty much online or offline shouting at each other. It's
Right.
just like shouting, but not really having a proper discussion. But as long, the way I personally see it is that as long as I give space to everyone to pretty much be themselves and be who they are with their opinions, as long as they give me also space and don't want to attack me personally, and if I don't take things so personal, and also accept to give space to their opinions and ideas, and actually they also do the same thing. So we're pretty much giving space and free space to grow, but also accept each other in the space, in the physical space, but also in the opinion and idea space. But also, this is how this whole society, but also our world, became so good and also so developed.
Yeah.
Because if we wouldn't, if you look at the evolution of mankind over time, the more we focus people into cities, but also spread it around knowledge through books, then with digital age, and so on and so forth, with TV or radios, etc., the more we just like spread it around the knowledge and influenced higher intensity of communications, but also capacities for the people to share and also formulate opinions, the better our societies grew and also performed, not only economically speaking, but also in terms of science, innovation, culture. So I just think that people should just give more space to everybody, but also to pretty much put a step down, maybe on their own ego, and just accept also and make space for everyone's opinions.
You just said the magic word. Louis, what I'm hearing is also a lot of the times when I'm hearing people communicate with each other, what I'm noticing is a lot of the people in communication with each other, they are not actually listening. They are waiting to talk. So if you don't even listen and therefore not hear what the person is truly saying, then how can there be a two-way communication, right? It's so they are. It's like in one of my workshops, that somebody said something about selling methods. So there's two types of selling. Selling by listening, and the other is selling by vomiting. So in other words, the salesperson starts blurting out everything about, our price, our features, blah, blah, vomit, and then the person. So, what did you learn about prospect, right? Nothing. So that's the challenge. But, when the world is going through a phase, I'm sure people will figure out, and they always have, and there's always, and also, I'm very optimistic about most things, other than just a few things here and there. But if you look back 30, 40, 50 years, really the world is much, much better, and the diseases and the overall nutrition and the cure to certain things, the world is in a much, much better place, but nobody is happy. I read this thing, everything is wonderful, but nobody is happy. We have the internet, we have technology, right? That's how it is.
I mean, coming from coming from France, I can tell you one thing is that people tend to be very pessimistic. And actually, I don't remember if it's true or not, so take it for what it is. But if I do remember correctly, people in Afghanistan were actually way happier than people in France.
Right. Exactly.
So look at it from a perspective, but also, sometimes when you go back home and you had a tough day, this can happen to everybody, and this happens to everybody actually every day, regardless of the circumstances. But if you think about what are your problems, and if you put it into perspective, if you live on the west side, on the western side of the world, you're already part of the richest people on this planet. The poorest person in Germany is already part of the top 10% richest people on this planet. So putting things back into perspective, you're going into a safe place where you have access to pretty much everything, and where you're pretty much trying to find reasons to be unhappy rather than finding yourself happy with what you have, but also for who you are and the potential that is in front of you. In the end, it's in your own hands.
Yeah, that's a great way to end it. So it's all up to you. We are responsible for our own experience on this planet. So Louis, this was great. So share with us your contact information. How can people reach you?
Well, they can reach out to me through LinkedIn. This is definitely the easiest way to do, by just searching for Louis Roubert basically on LinkedIn. That's the easiest way to reach out to me. And then afterwards, anybody who wants to reach out to me to chat or have any ideas or anything, you're pretty much welcome. I'm really happy to share with professionals if they need anything, or just, sharing just like different point of views. Again, I will give you space as long as you can give me mine, and we can have a very good, healthy debate. I really love those ones.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Louis. This was great. I'm sure people will take everything that you mentioned and put it in action. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nick.
And this brings us to the end of another episode, and I'll see you on the next one.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Be sure and subscribe, rate, and review our show. And be sure and share an episode with a friend. And thank you so much for being with us today. We'll see you next week here on Amazon Legends.